Welcome back to the PVA office, everybody. I'm joined today by Susan Lamb, Fayette County Clerk. Susan, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, David, for having me.
My pleasure. So you're in your second full year now as county clerk, or third? Third year
now.
of your first term.
That's right.
So
February
you're an old
23.
hand at it now.
Well, I don't call it that. It's
Yeah, young hand.
This is the first year without elections, so I've been able to focus on some of the other priority areas.
There is a huge learning curve, isn't there?
Yes, there
is in this office.
It is, as well as to the public.
Yeah.
And so yeah. I think what's so unique is to be able to learn more, to continue to be as you do, to continue to advocate to the public, so that they can be educated about the process that goes on with all of our local government.
And you've got a good history of that. You've always done a really good job with constituent services. So for those who don't know, before you were county clerk, you were the clerk for Urban County Council, and then you retired from that position and you were elected to the council,
Correct.
4th District Council member, and did some really good work with constituent services. It was a pleasure to work with you in that capacity.
I've always enjoyed working with you too, because you've been over here the whole time. So
You're right.
And I love that, because I know that you are a common factor and know so much, and your knowledge is expansive, and I really appreciate that too. So
What I was hoping that you would help me with today, it seems like that from the public standpoint, it's been one thing after another with property taxes the past several years. In 2018, the schools passed their so-called nickel tax, and then in 22, they passed another rate increase. In 23, the city passed a rate increase for urban services for garbage collection and street sweeping and that type of thing. And those two, 22 and 23, resulted in two different tax bills in the same year, 2 years in a row.
that's
And
correct.
then through all of this, property assessments and home prices have been going up at a fairly shocking annual rate increase each year. And now this year, there's going to be an additional line item on the tax bill with the parks tax.
That's correct.
And I think maybe with the kerfuffle over the occupational tax from that the schools were proposing, that the public is like, okay, what's going on? It's been one thing after another. And so they're kind of focused on that. They're asking questions. And in particular, I feel like that we as a community owe the taxpayers an explanation for why we had two tax bills,
Right.
2 years in a row in 22 and 23.
Right.
I think it caused some unique circumstances that really caused some pain to people. So I was hoping that you might be able to help me explain it a little bit. So why were there two tax bills in each year, 22 and 23?
Right. So, we know that when the schools, when they raise their tax rate, if they go beyond the 4%, well, that creates a recall period.
And if it goes beyond 4%, then we can float a petition. We being the voters could
Right.
float a petition and potentially put it to a vote on the next ballot.
Right.
And so that was kind of what was in play in 18, 22, and 23.
That's correct.
But we didn't have to do it in 2018 because of that nickel tax. They were able to go ahead and do it in advance. They were
Right.
earlier on the calendar.
That's correct.
So we were able to solve the whole, is it going to be on the ballot or not, before
Right.
tax bills went out.
That's
So it could
correct.
all go on one tax
That's
bill.
correct. Yes.
But that didn't happen in 22 and 23.
That's
So
correct.
in both of those cases, the rate increase was going to result in a greater than a 4%
Mm-hmm.
increase in revenue. So therefore, it was subject to a petition,
Right.
subject to recall.
That's correct.
But it happened so late in the calendar,
Right.
it couldn't go on the regular tax bill, right?
That's correct. Yes. And because of that, some unique statistics.
Yeah.
So in 2022, we had the normal. Let me start with this. The normal number of solid bills typically are 200 to 300. So that's the normal.
And when you say this, the sold ones, the ones that a third party purchaser would end up buying them when you sell the delinquent liens?
That's
Okay.
correct. Right. So, but because of there being a primary and supplemental in 2022, we had 1,242 primary bills and 2,292 supplemental bills that were transferred into the tax sale in 2023.
Wow.
Now, here's some more that's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
In 2023, we had 1,531 primary bills and 3,225 supplemental bills that were transferred into the tax sale in 24.
Well, that explains this. So So
That's
most
right.
people will know that there's a supplement in the newspaper every year of all the delinquent tax bills.
That's
And when
right.
I opened it, this is last year's from 24.
Right.
And I remember when I opened it, it's like, holy cow, this is triple the size
That's right.
it ordinarily is. And it really was. It wasn't just my imagination. It really was.
No,
almost
and
triple.
that's true. And anybody that looked at these, you saw that the record number of the small ones, because when the Urban County government increased their tax, it was for the street light.
Right.
And then there was a decrease in the waste collection. And I think what the problem was is that it was such a minuscule increase that it caused so many tax bills to be with less than $5.
Yeah, the second one in 23, which was the city portion that you're talking about, some of those increases were $10, $12, and
Right.
which is going to. So
Right.
the piece that I really wanted to get into a little bit is where I think that it really hurt people, and a lot of the stories that I heard, and who knows how many hundreds or thousands of people this happened to,
Right.
but so the regular tax bill, which was paid in September or October by the mortgage companies out of escrow, like most
Right.
of us, that's how we pay our taxes.
That's
It's through escrow and it's attached to our mortgage payment.
Right.
And so they paid the regular tax bill, and then months later, January, they get this tax bill for $12.
Right.
And these mortgage companies, they have all these automated systems in place. And I don't think it's one person sitting there opening every tax bill and
No.
say, what do I do with this? But
Right.
in a lot of cases, we heard that the second tax bill just didn't get paid. And that's the delinquents here that you're talking about, right?
Right.
It's thousands of the delinquents just didn't get paid.
That's correct.
But the ones where it did get paid, what I'm finding out after looking into this, I've spent months looking into this, is these automated systems would pay the second tax bill $12.
Right.
Look and say, yeah, okay, we've got the funds in escrow to pay it. But then once a year, when the escrow is recalculated and the mortgage payment is recalculated,
Right.
they thought, well, it looks like that we're only going to have $12 tax bills now, so we don't need all this money in escrow. Let's refund the escrow to the taxpayer, so
Right.
they get this check.
And they think
They
they're
don't-
in heaven.
Yeah, but they're not asking the right questions. Rightly or wrongly, they didn't ask the right questions. But anyway, but even the ones where it didn't result in an escrow refund to the taxpayers, it still resulted in an adjusted mortgage payment to reflect this now much smaller
Right.
need for an escrow payment.
Right.
So a mortgage payment might go from $1,000 down to $800.
Right.
Okay, and so that made people happy too. They're just as
Sure.
happy as getting the check, the
Exactly.
refund check, right? But then here comes the problem. A year later, now the real tax bill, and when I say real tax bill, it's
The primary.
the normal,
Right.
and for about half the people, they've now been reassessed by me, and so now it's not just the normal tax bill; it's now
It's
a much
an increase.
larger that's increased, and there's no money in escrow to pay it.
Right.
So now the mortgage company is having to claw back, hurry up and get this money funded back in escrow, and not only get the money back in escrow to pay this tax bill, but
But
get
to
enough in
change
there
it
to be ready for next
For
year's
next year.
to make
Right.
sure that it's fully funded.
Right.
And we've got people out here whose mortgage payments have doubled.
That's correct.
Could you imagine if your mortgage payment doubled? How I mean, that would affect anybody.
It would.
Under
It
any
would.
circumstances.
It would.
And
Right.
and I've heard from some people who were at serious risk at defaulting
Right.
on their mortgage, and maybe some even did. I certainly hope not, but you could see how that could happen. Now, the consolation, hopefully, is after a year of this and the dust settles, that the mortgage payment can then be adjusted back to the normal amount. But we've seen some very serious increases, and so people would call their mortgage company and ask the questions, and how these customer service reps are.
Right.
They've got the answers memorized for the top 9 or 10 questions that they get
Based on past performances.
based on
Right.
because usually when somebody gets a change in their mortgage payment and they call and they ask why, the answer is, well, your house is reassessed or your insurance went up,
Right.
right? But that's not what happened here.
No.
And so why did my mortgage payment double? Well, your house is reset. Well, think about that. A $100,000 increase in your assessment is only $100 a month. It's not a doubling of your
Right.
mortgage payment.
Right.
But
Right.
so anyway, I think that people have not had any of this explained to them, and they were owed a bit of an explanation. So thank you very much for
Yes.
helping me with that explanation.
Well, and I think that the other thing that people don't know is even after the 22 primary and supplemental, and the 23 primary and supplemental. Okay, so 24 was a normal year, one tax bill.
One tax bill.
But people don't understand that when these become delinquent, there's another set of problems. Yes, there's problems with the mortgage companies, but there's also the sale of the delinquent tax bills, which we're getting ready to have in our office. And so what?
So help people understand what exactly that means. So if you don't pay your tax bill by the deadline, which is December 31st in a normal year,
Well,
then what happens? It starts racking up penalties and interest
that's
until
correct.
April,
Right.
and then in April it moves from
The sheriff's office to the county clerk's office.
to your office.
And then we have it, and then I believe we hold it in for 90 days. And at any time during that time, you can still come in and pay that. You're going to pay the penalties and interest, but then there's an opportunity if there's certain circumstances, if someone was in the hospital or if there was someone that passed away, there is a process that we can consider a waiver of penalties. We can never waive the interest. The state statute.
And the interest, I believe, is 12% a year. Does that sound right? And
I
then,
think it does.
And then there are several stages along the way where there's an additional penalty.
Right.
And so by the time it gets to the sale, it's already significantly
yes.
increased.
Well, yes. I mean, for in instance, we've talked about how small these tax bills, the supplementals were. So just as an example, a $6.50 tax bill that would have been a supplemental for the 2023 property tax, by the time it goes through the whole process and has all of the penalties and the interest, and then there's the fees and the court costs, it can be up to $1,000 or over $1,000. And that's a huge
Just in
jump.
penalties
Yes.
and court fees,
Right,
et cetera, on
right.
top of the 12% interest on
Right.
whatever the
Right.
face value of the tax bill.
Well, and then what has happened is that each year during the delinquent tax sale in our office, you have people that come in and they purchase these delinquent tax bills, and then they can add their fees, which is by statute, but they can add fees and then they can add court costs, and they can also regain a large amount of money from the property owners and possibly even foreclose on those property owners and take their property.
So these are investors who buy the liens when you take the delinquent tax bills and make and create liens against the property and then sell those to these investors. And that happens every year, usually sometime around August. Right?
Well,
Or you're doing it.
Actually, in 24, we were able to have it in September because of the delay with the 2023 supplemental.
Because of all this mess we're talking about.
Exactly.
It got
yes.
delayed until
It
September.
did.
But ordinarily you're in late July or August
Yes,
and you're
right.
doing it. We're taping this on today on July the 16th, and I believe it's July the 18th.
18th is
that
our
you're
sale
having the
this
sale
year. Yes, that's correct. Yes.
And so then when they buy it, then in addition to all those penalties and fees and court costs, then the investors can then also apply their own administrative fees that I don't think are really spelled out in the statute, are they? Don't the statute just say that they can charge reasonable fees, whatever reasonable means?
And maybe so. I maybe so. But I think that it does address what they can charge. I don't know if it addresses the amount.
Right.
But yes, and the bad thing is, people don't realize in 2023 with the supplemental bill, they were so small that you had, this is factual. We had one company come in and they purchased 459 of the 2023 supplemental tax bills.
And the 23 supplementals were the cities that
That's
were the
correct.
much
The
smaller,
small.
$10, $12, $15
Yes. And
bills, and they bought
yes.
400 and something.
459. And, that's a problem because now out of those, that investor can now go and, and probably foreclose on, I don't know if they would foreclose on all 459 properties because some of them will pay that investor in order to get that lien released.
Right.
but that's
And they're
not the
probably
case
not going to
always.
be in a hurry. I don't think that they can foreclose in the first year after they buy it, and they're collecting 12% interest. So they're not in a hurry until the amount that the taxpayer owes starts getting close to the value of the property.
Right.
Then they start getting nervous about it and want to take it to foreclosure.
Well, and as I understand, I think the investor can start notifying the property owner as early as 30 days after they purchase
Yeah.
it. But
To
they
start
don't have
collecting.
to.
Yeah.
I mean, they can wait, like you said, and it's really unfortunate.
And they become first lien holder. They go in
That's-
front of the mortgage holder.
That's correct. Yes.
And that's the way that the state guarantees how we collect
Right.
all of the property, or almost all of them. I guess there's some categories that
Well,
may go permanently.
Tangible,
Tangibles,
tangibles, you can't sell those. But I mean, it's really it is unfortunate. Their tangibles are, I believe, they're protected. I think
Yeah.
they're not. But just for this year, for our 2024 primary bill. Thank goodness we didn't have any supplemental in 2024. We have, as of this afternoon, we have 746 bills that are eligible to be sold on Friday. And the largest bill is $55,116, and the smallest is $23.39.
Wow.
So, and we're guessing that probably between 200 and 400 of those 746 will be sold on Friday. And so then, of course, that just starts the whole process again.
But that 55,000 one must be close to a $5 million property. It'd be
Right.
interesting to see.
It is,
Hopefully they can get that paid and it doesn't have to go to because and that's unfortunate for everybody.
It
that
is
It goes
unfortunate.
all the way to being sold as a lien to a third party investor.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Because it'll like you're describing, it'll turn a reasonable face value tax bill into a very unreasonable debt that has to be dealt with, or that the house could be foreclosed on.
Oh, absolutely. And it's unfortunate. And, I think that it goes a long way when we can educate our entities that are making decisions on raising the ad valorem taxes.
I think so too, because I think when the decision was made to do, and I still don't completely. I get why we didn't have to do one in 2018, but we've been around for a while, and I don't think between the two of us we can remember the second tax bill happening before. So
Right.
it would be nice if we could get back to the place where that doesn't happen, because all of the stuff that we're talking about was self-inflicted by this double tax bill.
That's exactly right, and I think that through our education, trying to educate not only the public and property owners, but also to educate the taxing districts. I mean, we're now this is almost the end of July, and now we are propping up to get the new taxes that are coming in that are going to be set for 2025.
Yeah, we're headed into tax rate setting season.
Exactly.
And so that happens after. So I wrap up the tax roll for Fayette County, and I send that to the Kentucky Department of Revenue, and then they certify the tax roll, and which then presents it to the taxing district to set their rates, and then they have so many days in order to set their days after the tax roll is certified. So
Right.
the certification is imminent. It's going to happen any day now, and then the taxing districts will set their rates. So
Right.
so you're right. It is good that they know the longer they delay in that, potentially the more likely it is that we could end up again in this situation with double tax bills.
Right, which we, in my good faith, and yours too, I know we both strongly believe in this, that if there's ever a way to keep this from ever happening again, because it's punishing people that are innocent
Right.
and that don't, it's just a
They have
very
no idea it's
difficult
coming.
process.
And I think when the decision was made to do it the way we did it in 22 and 23, that it was a good faith decision, and I don't think it was
Right.
reasonable to foresee exactly what the mortgage companies how they would end up
Right.
fumbling the second tax bill. But now we know.
Well, we do, and I think that through all of the entities that have their hands on all this whole process, I think in our conversations, we have to make sure that we talk to each of these, the mortgage companies, and we have to make sure that they're voting the decision makers on these, and you know, that we all communicate so that we understand these were unintended consequences.
Yes, exactly.
And it was damaging, and it's still, I mean, there are still delinquent property taxes out there from 22 and 23.
And people paying double the mortgage payments that they should be making at this point to get their escrow accounts back up to where they're supposed to be. So I guess there's maybe a couple of different ways to come at this. One of them is get the tax calendar done earlier so that these decisions are made in plenty of time, that we know if there's going to be a petition, if we know it's going to go to a vote, so that everything can go on one tax bill.
Right.
And the other one is maybe the tax bills go out later.
Right.
So there's a couple of different ways to go about this. Maybe it's some combination of the two, but I think it's important while all of this is on everybody's radar and they're asking questions, let's get the information that we have. So thank you very much for the research you've done.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, me being so new to this, it has been a huge learning curve. But what I love about it is I'm not looking at it from a lens like I've been in it and looking at it from the same lens. I look at it from a way that we can make improvements in that. How do we do this so that it doesn't happen again? And how do we communicate? And I just really greatly value being able to work with you on this too, because, you know, neither one of us want these unintended consequences.
And I think it took a long time for these unintended consequences. I thought that's a perfect term for it, Susan, that these unintended consequences to really be fully understood, because, you know, we always hear from people when their mortgage payment goes up or when there's a shortfall. I kind of joke that people get mad at me 3 times when I raise their assessment, when they get the tax bill, and then when they hear from their escrow that there's not enough money in escrow. So we always hear these, but so I think that maybe we were a little tone deaf and didn't really understand when they were telling us about this in 22 and 23. It's like, no, this is different than a typical escrow shortfall. This is something really serious that's going on here.
Well, and I think too that we had, you know, 2 years in a row.
Yes.
I mean, and we've talked about this. I don't know that we can ever mention a time in the past years where there's been one.
No, we can't.
And,
that I can.
Right. And so I think that if we don't act responsible and hear what the public and what's really happening, until you came to me and talked to me about the mortgage situations, I didn't know. But turns out one of my own employees in my office in land records, it happened to her, but she was aware, and so she stopped it from happening.
Right, she got the escrow refund, but knew not to cash the check.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a couple of friends last night, and lo and behold, they both were affected by the mortgage situation.
Yes.
And so it's, I mean, we have to think through it. And, you know, of course, we talk about this. It's really complicated because you have to look through the state statute, and it tells you, you know, you have to wait 30 days for this or 45 days for this.
Everything's a domino.
It is.
So everything along, the tax calendar runs the same every year, but every step in the tax calendar triggers the next step.
It does.
That's controlled by statutes and says how many days there has to be in between them.
That's right.
So it's a complicated system.
It really is. I mean, and I understand that it's necessary to have the complexities, but along with that, again, I think it's very important that we look at, okay, if we had changed the deadline, then how that would have affected it more of a positive outcome.
Right.
And I think that going forward, you and I've talked about this. What is the reason that it triggers the recall, and then what causes the supplemental? And I mean, you know, because I think
what's the exact date that we need it determined to make sure that doesn't happen? And that's not an easy question to answer.
Well, it isn't, and the reason it's not easy, it depends on the date that it's set.
The taxing district sets the rates, right?
And it's based on the 30 days and the 45 days and so forth, based on the date that is, and that's not the same day every year.
Right. And I think there's more that we can do to get the tax rolls certified faster. Right. There is some unnecessary delays in there that I think need to be brought to light and talked about with a lot of different agencies that are involved in it, and then also there is some flexibility on when the actual tax bill can be mailed, and I think that needs to be on the table as well.
I agree.
So for the the viewing public and the listening public, just
Yes.
know we are headed into tax rate setting season. Right now, the tax
Yes.
roll will probably be certified sometime around July 21st, which will then kick off X number of days. So just pay attention during the
Right.
month of August, because the school boards in the city and the
Right.
state, and the state has already announced that they are lowering the tax rate based on the
Right.
growth in the tax roll for the 5th year in a row.
That's
And
nice.
that's the way that our compensating House Bill 44 is supposed to work.
Right.
As property values go up, the
They've-
rate's supposed to go down. And if you look at the state over the last 12 years, the state rate has gone down like 12 or 13% total, whereas the schools rate has gone up 24%.
Exactly.
And in that same period of time, the tax roll has grown 65%.
Right.
So the revenue to the schools has doubled in that
Wow.
period of time.
Wow.
So anyway, tax rates are being set in August.
Right.
Pay attention,
Right.
ask all the right questions.
That's correct. Yes, and I mean, go and when you see that someone is trying to increase their fees, be a part of it. Be
Yeah.
a part of. Be an advocate and go and speak on your behalf, and don't be fearful to go and voice your concerns.
Right, and even though the mortgage company is paying your taxes out of escrow, it will affect your pocketbook and your kitchen table
yes, it will.
finances. So.
Yes, it will. Yeah. I mean, I think that, and it's. I'm looking forward to being able to provide more transparency with the process. Later this year, first of next year.
You've got a new website coming.
We do, and I'm really looking forward. We're going to have the ability to really have some more unique way to provide information to the public,
Good.
and I think that's going to help too. And I know you really do a good job of that as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we
And-
try to.
Yeah, I mean, you keep trying to find ways to get to the public and
Right.
to educate them, because I do believe in Fayette County we do have a smart community that they want to know the process. So you're not talking to deaf ears all
Right.
the time, and I think that's really important. When we know that, then we need to act upon it, and we need to continue educating our public about their responsibilities. It always amazes me when someone will come in to pay their car taxes, and they didn't get a little reminder card that doesn't even come from my office, and they come in blaming me for not telling them when I said, well, you know when your
You know when your
birthday
birthday
is.
is, right.
I said, well, if you know when your birthday is, just go out and celebrate, and then bring in your car, your taxes for your car, and you'll be all right.
Some of those conversations go better than others, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
for
you.
doing this. Is there anything else you think we need to get? We
No.
covered a lot of ground. I appreciate that very much. You're
Yeah.
very well prepared.
Well, I really appreciate it too, and just know that if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I love it when people ask me questions, because it's an opportunity for, if I don't already know the answer, I learn it with you,
Exactly.
and I think that's very valuable. And we always continue to have to learn and educate ourselves so that we can be the better advocate for our community members.
Well, thank you for being a good advocate on their behalf, Sue.
Well,
Thank
you
very
too.
much for being
Thank you,
here. All
David.
right. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.